Okay, so does anyone remember a little bit about what we talked about last week?
Talked about the covenants last week.
Okay, so we talked about the covenants that were created in the covenants. We were sharing that whereas in covenant theology, it talks about how there's a old covenant, there's a new covenant that replaces an old covenant. That's covenant theology. What we did was we shared that according to Scripture, that's not how that works.
Right.
But the Father has one covenant, and then He adds another covenant, and He adds another, and they all work to the good for a purpose. Right? So we start with the Adamic or the covenant with Adam, and we talked about a little bit about women and their birth pains, and I said, now, is that still today? Women say yes. We said there was a rainbow covenant with Noah. Do we still see a rainbow today?
Yeah.
It's yes. You see how they still are in existence, and that's how it's kind of set up. And they all point to a purpose, which is the Mashiach. So today we're going to go over realistically our walk. So this will help those to be able to explain it to friends, family members. This is going to be, though I call it the basics of the Hebraic walk, it's going to be a little bit more than basic. Okay, because we're going to get into the whole understanding of why the Mashiach even came. What was his purpose, his point? You know, instead of just thinking he came for a different purpose than what is being commonly taught today. So we're going to go over a lot of that today. Right, so I condensed this lesson. I really did. I think I told you I had about 20-something pages, and I got it down
To 19.
to
15.
18 pages.
Oh.
And but you know, most of it's scripture because in writings I really want that to stand out more than anything. I will read my notes. People say they have a better grasp if I read my notes versus me just talking about things. So I will be doing that as well. All right. So the title I got is Faith of Our Fathers. Now, the faith of our fathers. I want us to go to Romans chapter 4, verse 16. Okay, Romans 4:16. Okay. And I'll slow down enough so y'all can stay with me here. If I start speeding up, it just means I'm trying to catch time.
4:16.
Romans 4:16. Okay, and Mikael, I'm going to have you read some places when I get there.
All right.
I haven't got there yet, but when I do. All right, so Romans 4:16. It says, therefore, it is of faith that it might be by favor, commonly called grace, to the end the promise might be sure to all the seed, not to that only which is of the law, but to that also which is of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of us all. Okay? So there's an end result that we're going to get to, but rest assured that this promise rests inside the promise that was given to Abraham. And that's what we went over extensively last Shabbat. Okay? Alright, so the faith of the fathers is rooted in the covenant that was made with Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Everyone knows that all those covenants work together. There's not one for Abraham that's separate from Israel. They all work together. Okay, they all work as a unit here. Okay? So, in order to understand our Hebrew roots, we need to understand that the purpose of the Mashiach or the Messiah and how he links all of this together. So, question number one is going to be, who is Yahusha? That's what we're going to talk about. And why did he die on a tree? We're going to talk about that. Alright? So, I want to start with Yehukanan or John chapter 1, verse 3. Okay, we're going to start with those things that we're going to tie the Mashiach back into what is commonly called the Old Testament. Okay, so this is John or Yehukanan chapter 1, verse 3.
Right. Yes. Correct. Correct.
Okay. So it says, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made.
Okay.
So, where did that take us to? To the beginning, right?
Yeah.
All right. We'll look at another place, which is in Colossians chapter 1, verse 15 and verse 16. First Colossians, or Colossians 1, chapter 1, verse 15 and verse 16. So it says, who is the image of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of every creature? For by him were all things created that were in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him.
Right.
Okay, so I have two things to talk about, and we're going to get into it. One is, the purpose of me reading these is because somehow, in some form of theology, the Old Testament, as it's called, was with the Father. That's the plan. Plan A is, there's a Father that's in the Old Testament, and they had a relationship with Israel, a natural Israel or a natural seed. Plan B is the New Testament with the Messiah, with the new Gentile church. Okay? So that's what's going on, but we read in here that it's going to be the Mashiach the whole time, and it's not divided or separated like that. We're going to actually see what the plan is as we go further. So, the note says the New Testament church, a new and separate entity, distinct and separate from the nation of Israel and the things of the Old Testament. They're totally different is how they view it. Okay? They're not going to link themselves to it. So we're going to help them link it anyway. Alright? So, from the beginning, Genesis and the Word teaches that it was Elohim, the Father, who willed it, but it was the Mashiach who spoke it. Okay? It was the will of the Father, and from the will, the Mashiach created. Right? And so when you think about it, because remember the Mashiach, I always tell you, he does nothing of himself. Right. Everything he did came from the Father. Right? Alright, so Psalms, or Tehillim, chapter 33, verse 6. Psalms 33, 6. So it says, by the word of Yahuwah were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. Verse 7 says, he gathers the waters of the sea together as in a heap. He lays up the depth in storehouses. Let all the earth fear Yahuwah. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. For he spoke, and it was done. He commanded, and it stood fast. Okay, so what was done? It was done by who?
By the Word.
By the Word. Right? John 1:14 says what? The Word
became flesh.
Became flesh. Okay? So it's the same Word that created all things. Right. And we're going to wind up, it's the same Word that was actually with them at Mount Sinai, which we'll see in a little bit. Alright, so if you guys are writing notes, I'll give you a little title here. It says, or subtitle, it says, it was Yashar'al who made covenant with Abraham. Okay? It was the Mashiach that actually made covenant with Abraham.
Right.
Alright, so before we hit Galatians 3:16, it's a direct quote from Genesis chapter 17, verse 7. Okay, Genesis 17:7. I'll try not to use as much Hebrew because it's to help others understand the walk. You know, typically I use a lot of Hebrew, but I won't do it this time. Alright, so Genesis 17:7. Okay, and it says, and I will establish my covenant between me and you, and your seed after you in their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be Elohim unto you and to your seed after you. Now, you hear the part where it says, and I will establish. So keep that word I will establish, because we're going to find out who that I is. All right? Galatians 3:16. Galatians chapter 3, verse 16. Okay, and then we're going to jump down to verse 29. So Galatians 3:16 says, "Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He says not unto seeds as of many, but as one, and to your seed, which is Mashiach, or Messiah." Okay? Then we'll go down to verse 29. This is Galatians 3:29. And it says, "And if you be Mashiach's, then are you Abraham's seed, and heirs according to the promise." Okay? So you're going to see the Mashiach is linked to this particular seed that was given to Abraham, and there was a promise given to Abraham. So we're going to see, if you're of Mashiach, then you should be of this same promise that was given to him. Okay? So in Messiah, you are an heir according to what was promised to Abraham for the seed. In the Messiah, you are a part of the Abrahamic covenant. The Messiah who made covenant with Abraham. All right, so what was the covenant that was made? "I am going to give to you and your descendants the land of Israel." That was a promise. So, most Christians don't think that they're getting the land of Israel. They have a whole different understanding. But the promise that was given to Abraham and to his seed, that they will obtain the land of Israel. Okay? There's no way of getting around that part. Okay? So most Christians do not personally or today connect the faith in Messiah and associate with inheriting the covenant of promise of Abraham. But Scripture says that if you are Messiah, then you are of Abraham's seed and heir according to the promise. So you have to attach that promise to the Messiah that was given to Abraham, and keep it in fact the Messiah was the one that made that promise to Abraham. Okay, so you can't separate the two. Right? So it says, who made covenant with Abraham? Let's go to Genesis, or Bereshit, chapter 15, verse 17. This is Genesis 15, 17. We'll start putting some of these pieces together now. Okay, Genesis chapter 15, verse 17. All right, so it says, "And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp." So I need you to highlight smoking furnace and burning lamp that passed between those pieces. "And in the same day Yahuwah made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto your seed have I given the land from the river of Mitzrayim, or Egypt, unto the great rivers of Euphrates." Okay? Everyone understands that it was a smoke furnace and a burning fire, right? All right. Look at Exodus chapter 19, verse 17. Exodus 19, 17. You've got to keep this in mind. Smoking furnace and a burning lamp. Okay, so it says, "And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with Elohim, and they stood at near the parts of the mount." It says, "And Mount Sinai was altogether on smoke, because Yahuwah descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly." Okay? So, the one that was at Mount Sinai happened the same thing with Abraham. So everyone can see the one that was with Abraham. Now you can see they're at Mount Sinai, right? And we're going to read later on, was the Messiah at Mount Sinai? Because if it was, then this is the same being, which we'll see in just a minute. But let's look at, let's keep reading something, because I got a point to give here. Let's go down to Exodus chapter 24, verse 3. Exodus 24, 3. So it says, and Moses came and told the people all the words of Yahuwah and all the judgments, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which Yahuwah said we will do. And Moses wrote all the words of Yahuwah and rose up early in the morning and built an altar under the hill and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings and oxen unto Yahuwah. And Moses took half the blood and put it on the basin, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the blood of the covenant and read in the audience of the people, and they said, all that Yahuwah said we will do, and be obedient. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant, which is the blood covenant that the Messiah was talking about when you read Matthew chapter 26, verse 28. We'll keep going. And it says, which Yahuwah has made with you concerning all these words. Then went up Moses and Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and the 70 elders of Israel. And they saw Elohi of Israel, and there were under his feet as were paved works of sapphire stone. And it were the body of the heavens in his clearness. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel he laid on his hands, and also they saw Elohim and did eat and drink. So here it says they did see him, right? Mm-hmm. And they ate and drank with him. Now, do you remember when the Messiah said in John, I think it is, chapter 1, verse 41 or verse 25, where it talks about no one has seen or heard the Father at any time.
Your Father, right.
So if no one has seen or heard him, who are they seeing?
Right.
Okay?
The word.
Right, so this is the word, but what I'm getting at is sometimes they're not connecting the dots to say this is not technically the Father, this was actually the Messiah before he took on a title, right. Messiah or Mashiach. It was him, he was the word or the messenger of the Father, hence the word of the Father, the mouthpiece of the Father, the whole time. Right. Okay? But anyway, verse 12 it says, and Yahuwah said unto Moses, come up to me into the mount, and be there, and I will give you tables of stone, and a law, and commandments, which I have written, that you may teach them. Now, this same being says he's going to give you his law and his commandments. Okay? This same being. Everyone's good with that. Now, keep that in mind, because this is now, if he's the one that gave the law and the commandments, he is considered the lawgiver. Right? James chapter 4, verse 12. James chapter 4, verse 12. Or Yaqub 4:12. Okay? So it says, James 4:12 says, there is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy, who are that judge another. So, this lawgiver, and he's the one that saves.
Right.
Okay? So if that's the Mashiach, just not commonly called Mashiach at this point, he was the lawgiver, and he's the one that saves. And you'll see that later. Okay? So, in my notes I just got who made a covenant with Abraham? That was Mashiach. And who was at Mount Sinai, which we're going to see a little bit more who it is, because some people is not convinced just yet. So we'll keep going on that one. And then I had a quick note, which was in Genesis or Bereshit 49:10. You'll have to go to it because you're all familiar with it. Where it says, the scepter should not depart from Yehuda. So what tribe did the Messiah come from? From Yehuda or Judah, right? It says, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh comes, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be, to that lawgiver. Okay? So again, we're seeing that this must be the Messiah the whole time over here. So there's no separation in books how they have it today.
Right.
Okay? We're now starting to see, or we will be seeing more, that it's actually that the Messiah was over there, and we're going to see later on, was the Messiah married before? Could be. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. Alright. So, you remember in John 14:15 where it says, if you love me, you keep my commandments. So, I want you to see the big word my. And that why can he say, if you love me, keep my commandments? He was the lawgiver. So he's saying, keep my commandments because I was the one that gave it there at Mount Sinai. Okay? So you can't separate and say, well, that's the Messiah's commandments, and then over in the Old Testament, that's the Father's commandments. And that's not how that works. It was his the whole time. Okay? So, the phrase, love me, keep my commandments, was spoken at Mount Sinai. We just talked about that, and you can read that in Exodus or Shemot chapter 20, verse 6. Okay, so, next we need to go to is 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1. Okay? 1 Corinthians 10:1 says, moreover, brethren, I would not that you should be ignorant how that all our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea. So, again, this is talking about the wilderness. Alright? Everyone understands where this is at. And then it says, and all were immersed unto Moses. So that's definitely in the wilderness. And in the cloud and in the sea. And they all ate of the same spiritual meat. It says, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Mashiach, or Messiah. So that was the Messiah that was with them the whole time. Right. So if it was him with them the whole time, and then he took them to Mount Sinai, and then you'll see later on something takes place at Mount Sinai. Okay? So what we got so far is Yahshua created the heavens and the earth. Yahshua made covenant with Abraham, and Yahshua gave the Torah at Mount Sinai. Okay? So, we're doing good so far. Here's another, I'll just read it real quick. It's in Exodus chapter 15, verse 6. Okay, this is talking about who defeated the Egyptians. Okay? Who defeated the Egyptians. Exodus chapter 15, verse 6. Who did he say made the heavens and the earth? Alright, keep that in mind. Alright, so 15:6 says, your right hand, O Yahuwah, has become esteemed in power. Your right hand, O Yahuwah, has dashed in pieces the enemy. So this is another name called the what? Right hand. The right hand. Alright? Isaiah chapter 48, verse 12. Isaiah chapter 48, verse 12. Okay? So it says, hearken unto me, O Yaakov, or Jacob, and Yashar'al Israel, my called. I am he. I am the first. I also am the last. My hand also has laid the foundations of the earth, and my right hand has spanned the heavens. When I call unto them, they stand up together. Now, this right hand also created the earth as well. So if we read in Colossians, we read in John that it was the Mashiach that made all of this. Here's another place where it says now he's at right hand, and where is he supposed to be sitting? Right. At the right hand. Okay? So again, all of this still points to the Messiah. Okay? And it's to a set of people. Okay? He hasn't changed. He's still talking about Yaakov or Israel. Nobody has changed. There's no replacement theology going on just yet. Right? Alright. The marriage at Mount Sinai. Okay? That's what we're going to talk about next. The marriage at Mount Sinai. So look at Jeremiah chapter 2 verse 1. Jeremiah chapter 2 verse 1. Alright, so it says, moreover, the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, go and cry in the ears of Jerusalem, saying, thus says Yahuwah, I remember you, the kindness of your youth, the love of your espouse, you guys can highlight that, when you went after me in the wilderness in the land that was not sown. Now, obviously this is talking about Israel, right? And they were the ones that was in the wilderness. The word there, espouse, if you look that word up, is kalula in Hebrew. But it comes from the root word kala, which means bride. Okay? So he's letting you know that that being that was at Mount Sinai was married to Israel.
Right.
Okay?
Or people. To that people.
Correct. Verse 3 says, Yashar'al set apart unto Yahuwah the first fruits. You can highlight first fruits because we're going to see that later. Of his increase. All that devour him shall offend. Evil shall come upon them, saith Yahuwah. So, Israel is set apart unto Yahuwah and his first fruits. Keep that in mind. Okay? So, if they were married there, then that must mean there must be some marital vows there. Okay? If they were married, there must be some marital vows. So we're going to look at the marital vows real quick, which is in Exodus chapter 19, verse 5. Okay. All right, so it says, now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. For all the earth is mine. Remember, everything was made for him, by him. It was made for him, right?
Right.
Okay. And then it says, verse 6 says, and you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a set-apart nation. Okay? Because keep in mind, we're going to be a kingdom of priests. You're going to read that again somewhere else. Okay? These are the words which you shall speak unto the children of Israel. Okay? So these were the vows that was given to Israel. And then if you jump down to verse 8, this is what they said. Okay? And all the people answered together and said, all that Yahuwah hath spoken, we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto Yahuwah. So all the words that we will do is saying what?
I do.
I do.
Right.
Okay? Everyone's good so far.
We do.
Okay, so obviously what winds up happening here is, did they wind up keeping these vows?
No.
Didn't happen, right? So they wind up breaking it. So does that mean once they broke those vows, that now they broke everything off and his covenant is null and void? And now we got to start something else.
No.
It continues.
Okay, so we read last week, which I want Mikael to read real quick.
Because he has a right to, he's going to sacrifice something to bring him back. Something must die in order to bring make up the other vow.
Oh yeah, but we're going to read because they'll say, oh, I don't want them to think I'm spiritualizing anything.
Okay.
Okay, so go to Psalms chapter 89 and read verse 28 through 37. The hit's going to be 34 through 37, but I want you to start at 27. So it's
Where you want to start?
89, starting at verse 28.
28 to 37. It says, I guard my kindness for him forever, and my covenant is steadfast with him. And I shall establish his seed forever, and his throne as the days of the heavens. If his sons forsake my Torah, and do not walk in my right rulings, if they profane my laws and do not guard my commands.
Okay, because that's what Israel did, right? Okay, keep going.
So if they profane my laws and do not guard my commands, then I shall visit their transgression with the rod.
Okay, so he's going to do what because they did this? He's going to visit their transgression with a rod. Okay.
And their crookedness with flogging.
Okay.
But my kindness I do not take away from him, nor be false to my trustworthiness. I shall not profane my covenant.
Listen to what it says.
Neither will I change what is going out from my lips. Once I have sworn by my set apartness, I do not lie to David or David. His seed shall be forever.
Who? His what? His seed shall be forever.
And his throne as the sun before me.
Okay.
Like the moon, it is established forever, and the witness in the heaven is steadfast. Selah.
Okay. So his covenant, I don't care how many times they break it, he doesn't break his.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay?
Because he said he's sworn by his word.
Right. It's backed by his set-apart name, commonly called sacred name, right? So because of that, I don't care how much they broke it, he's going to obviously chastise them, but he's still going to remember the covenant that he made with their forefathers. Okay, this is all of a natural seed, correct? Okay, so we're going to see a little bit how does the others come in that's not of the natural seed. We'll see that in just a minute. So what winds up happening here is they wind up getting what they call a stony heart. Okay, can anyone tell me what a stony heart is?
Hard.
Stiff neck. Okay, hard headed.
Yeah, disobedient.
Unable to penetrate.
Okay, unable to penetrate. Just hard headed, huh? Okay, anyone else want to add something to that?
What rebellious?
Rebellious.
Unruly.
Okay, so I want to give you a good definition. If you go to Mark chapter 4, verse 2, this is the parable of the sower. Okay, Mark chapter 4, verse 2. Okay, so Mark 4, verse 2 says, "And he taught them many things by parable, and said unto them in his doctrine, Hearken, behold." Now who's speaking here? The Mashiach, right? Or the Messiah. Hearken, he says, "Behold, there went out a sower to sow. And it came to pass, as he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and the fowls of the air came and devoured it up. And some fell on stony ground," keep that in mind, "where it had not much earth, and immediately it sprang up, because it had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, it was scorched, and because it had no root, it withered away." Okay? Now, let's get that interpretation of this parable by just jumping down to verse 16. Verse 16, listen to what it says. "And these are they likewise which sown on stony ground, who, when they have heard the word, immediately received it with gladness." How many people does that? Oh man, this is the truth. This is where it's at. Okay? But then, verse 17 says, "And have no root in themselves, and so endure but for a time.
Right.
Afterwards, when affliction or persecution arises, for the word's sake, immediately they are offended." Okay? So you remember they come out of Mitzrayim or Egypt. Oh yes, we got a Savior. Look what He's doing to all our enemies. All this stuff is great. Then all of a sudden, later on, you start seeing them start to rebel. So it wasn't rooted inside of them the way it was supposed to be rooted, i.e., it wasn't really in their heart. So they have what they call a stony heart, and this is the picture of a stony heart. Okay, so something has to take place with that heart, right? All right. So the way, I'll read the notes. It says, the way the heart surgery is going to perform is through a renewing of a covenant. Okay, because the original covenant was broken. So let's see how that works. Look at, real quick, Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 26. Ezekiel 36, 26. Okay. This is Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 26. All right. So listen to what it says. "A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you." Now I want you to think about within you like in your what? Inward parts. Keep that in mind because we want to revisit that. Okay? "And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh." It says, "And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you shall keep my judgments and do them." All right? So keep that in mind about what's happening here. So what's supposed to take place is that stony heart He's going to take out. Right? That's what you call the letter of the law. Oh my goodness, I got to do Shabbat. Oh, there's a sacrifice. You know, they're just doing whatever it says with no heart, with no spirit in it. Okay? So He says, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that stony thing out of you. I'm going to replace it with a heart of flesh, but I'm going to add something to it to help you, which is the Ruach, or the Spirit. Can everyone understand this? Mm-hmm. All right. Read for me real quick, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 3.
2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians 3:3, making it obvious that you are a letter of Mashiach.
Okay, letter of Mashiach, or epistle they'll call it. Go ahead.
Served by us, written not with ink, but by the Spirit of the living Elohim. Not on tablets of stone, but on fleshly tablets of the heart.
Okay. Stone tablets representing a stony heart. Right? You see that? So, when you now see this here, now 2 Corinthians should make better sense to you. Now it should talk about, okay, well, because you read the whole thing, it was confusing to some people. If they read all of 2 Corinthians chapter 3, they'll think that the law is just done away with. But now if you revisit that, understanding now that the stony tablets or the stony ground or the stony heart all are the same thing. Okay? But the fleshly part, the fleshly heart, or a new heart, is going back with a new spirit. So now when you walk, which we'll go through later, when you walk in doing His commandments, it's going to be with the Ruach helping you keep His instructions. We're going to see that later on. Okay, so I don't want to jump too far ahead. But everyone's good. Everyone understands this. No problems. All right. Now, let's look at Jeremiah 31:31. Because this is the covenant that He's going to make with them. So we need to read how this covenant is going to be. Now that we understand that the stony part of it technically is the law without any spirit. Everyone perfectly gets that. So Jeremiah 31:31. Alright, so it says, behold, the days come, saith Yahuwah, that I will make a renewed covenant with the house of Yisrael and with the house of Yehudah. So, who's this covenant with?
Israel and Judah.
Okay, so why does it say the house of Yehudah and the house of Yisrael?
Because they were divided into two houses.
Alright, so we're going to revisit that soon. Verse 32 says, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day, listen to this, as I took them. So remember that I was the Messiah that was at Mount Sinai that we just went over. So he says, I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim, or Egypt, which my covenant they broke. Altogether I was a what? Husband. So again, this that was at Mount Sinai was Mary. The same Messiah that even the Christians believe in today, hint, was already married. Okay, so we're going to see how this marriage works. Okay, unto them, saying Yahuwah. Verse 33 says, but this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith Yahuwah, I will put my law, the same thing that's done away with, that they say is done away with. As you can see, that's not the case. He says, my law in their inward parts. Did we just talk about the inward part? Okay, so you remember he said, I'm going to put my spirit in your inward part, right? And he's going to put these laws in your inward part. So once you put together here that this new heart is going to be accompanied by a Ruach, or a spirit. Okay? And right in their hearts, and will be their Elohim, and they will be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, for they shall know me from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith Yahuwah, for I will forgive their iniquities. And listen to what it says, I will remember their sins no more.
Question for y'all. Since it mentions in verse 31 the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah, then it comes down in verse 33 and says the house of Israel. Is it talking about them combined,
Not
or
yet.
just separately house of Israel?
Right, still a separate house of Israel. So, good question. So the reason why it's separate the house of Israel is because they're the only ones that got the divorce.
Correct.
All right? So since they got a divorce, according to Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 8, the house of Israel got divorced, the house of Judah did not get it. Okay? So the house of Yehudah did not get it. All right? Now, this same quote from Jeremiah 31:31 is the same quote, so we're going to look at it in Hebrews chapter 8, verse 8. Okay?
Quick question. The house of Judah, were they ever divorced from? Never. So, in the essence, the Messiah and the house of Judah still matter.
Right. And that's why that's why he came in the house of Yehuda. Remember, it's always given to David. He always had a tribe. And so, and the lawgiver was supposed to come out of that tribe. So you can't divorce that tribe. That's why. All right.
Two wives. You had two wives.
Well, his wives got beside themselves and split. All right. All right. 8:8. It says, for finding fault with them, he says, behold, the days come, saith Yahuwah, when I will make a new or renewed covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Yehuda. So this is the same thing we just read in Jeremiah 31:31. It says, not according to the covenant I made with their fathers in the day when what? I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mitzrayim or Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith Yahuwah. For this is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, said Yahuwah, I will put my law into their minds and write them on their hearts, and I will be to them Elohim, and they will be to me a people, and they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness and their sins, their iniquities will I remember no more. Okay, so again, this law is still there. It's there in the Tanakh, commonly called the Old Testament. It's there in the Messianic writings, over in the book of Hebrews. So this law is never going anywhere. And we're going to get into Paul's writings in just a minute to see what's going on. But just keep that in mind so far. So the renewing, does everyone have it now, that the part Paul has an issue with is these people with this stony heart. Okay, this stony heart is the issue. So when they're doing the law, and not all of it wasn't the law of quote-unquote Moses, but it was also the rabbinic laws that they had going on, or the Pharisaic laws. Okay, these things they were holding on to, and this is the fight that Shaul or Paul had. Again, we'll talk about that in just a minute. All right. So the reason why Yashar'al died on the tree or the stake was for the direct purpose for forgiving their sins of the nation of Israel, which we'll see in just a minute, who broke the terms of the marriage covenant at Mount Sinai, and in doing so, he will offer salvation to the entire world. Okay, we're going to see how that works. All right, so the mission of the Messiah. Let's look at what the mission that you already know. Y'all know the mission of the Messiah? To gather the exiles of Israel. To make the two sticks one. Remember, that was a promise that had to be fulfilled, right? But let's look at that in John chapter 11. John chapter 11, verse 49. Let's see what they call the New Testament says. All right, now it says, and one of them, Caiaphas, being the high priest, that same year said unto them, you know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not. Now listen to what it says. And this he not of himself, but the high priest that year, what did he do? This was a prophecy. So he prophesied that Yashar'al would die for the nation. And then it says, and not for that nation only, but that also he should gather together in one the children of Elohim that were scattered abroad. Okay? So, think about what he just said. Now, he's prophesying this. So, who was scattered abroad? And we can't just... We all would say it was Israel, right? Mm-hmm. But we need to make sure we have some place to find that. Okay? So, if it says over here in 52, and not for the nation only, but also for... also he should gather together in one the children of Elohim. We'll talk about that one real quick. One quick verse on that one. And it says that we're scattered abroad. Now look at Esther, Hadassah, chapter 3, verse 8. Esther 3:8. Okay. It's just one verse. I'll read it real quick here. It says, "And Haman said unto the king of Syria, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people, and all the provinces of your kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people." Meaning these laws are set apart from everybody else's laws. Okay? It says, "Neither keep they the king's laws, therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them." So keep that in mind. Now look at James 1:1. Look at James 1:1. Or Yaqub 1:1. Alright, so it says, "A servant of Elohim and of the sovereign Yashar'al," he says, "to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings." So, do you think that Kafir knew, prophesying, knowing that the Mashiach came to gather not just the nation of Yehuda, for example, but also the nation that was scattered abroad as well? Because you remember, they were all scattered ultimately to the four corners of the earth. But this again was a prophecy. But we'll keep going. And the word, you all can just write it down. I'm not even going to read it, but you go to Devarim 14:1. That would just tell you that Israel is the children of Elohim, as it says. Okay? And so you all can write that down. All right, so we're about to get into the gospel, as they call it.
Hold on. Repeat it. You said what?
Deuteronomy,
Oh,
chapter
Deuteronomy,
4,
okay.
chapter 14, verse 1.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Those are called, they'll just say that they're the children of Elohim, that Israel is. So that goes with John, what John says in verse 2. Alright, so, John 3:16, everyone's familiar with this. Alright? "For Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. For Elohim sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved." So again, he's the one that's going to save the world. Right? So I think we're all in agreement there. If you are in Mashiach, you are the heir of the covenant. Right? The promise that was made to Abraham, which we read in Galatians 3:29. Now, how will these other people be able to be a part of Yashar'al? How is this possible? Something has to take place.
Yeah.
Adopted.
Yeah.
Death? Okay. But once the death is done, something still has to take place.
They gotta first accept Mashiach and keep the laws.
Okay. We'll talk about that part in just a minute. There's a grafting in that has to take place. Okay? There's a grafting in that has to take place. So, I'm just going to tell you the two places. You guys can read it on your own. Romans 11:17 talks about the wild branch being grafted in. And Romans 11:24 talks about the natural branches being grafted in. Okay? Alright, so you either one of the two. Alright, so it says you get grafted into the renewed covenant that was made with the house of Israel and the house of Yehuda. Because that's what this whole covenant was about. You remember when he gave that in Matthew 26:28 you remember, so this cup is for the new, as they would say, the New Testament. But you mind, who was there? It was his disciples or his own. So they all understood it was about the covenant of Israel. No church, nobody was there but his own people. Because these are the same people that's going to go out and go teach them. Okay? But anyway, so my question to you is, who is the green olive branches? Anyone know? Because we say that it's Israel, but can we read it and find that it's true? Yes.
Great.
Right, because remember he's talking about the wild olive, right, and the natural.
Right.
But let's read in Jeremiah 11:16. Jeremiah 11:16. So we can see who these branches are. So that's why we're saying that this is the covenant that was with them. So you're grafted into these branches, these olive trees. So it says, "You will call your name a green olive tree, fair and of goodly fruit. With the noise of a great tumult he has kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. Okay, do you see what happens? So you can see this connecting with Romans chapter 11. It says in verse 17, it says, "For Yahuwah of hosts that planted you has pronounced evil against you for the evil of the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah, which they have done against themselves to provoke me to anger in offering incense unto Baal or Baal." Okay? So as you can see, these branches are Israel. Okay? One natural, one wild. So if you want to be grafted into that, you'll be grafted into that covenant that we just read in Jeremiah and what we just read in Hebrews chapter 8, verse 8. Okay? So the new covenant was only made with the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah, and anyone can be a part of the covenant by being grafted in. Now, once you are grafted in, something has to take place, as Ox said. Right? Once you're grafted in, you don't do your own thing. If you're being grafted into Israel, you're grafted into all that comes with that covenant. Okay? So, look at 1 John 2:6. 1 John 2:6. Okay, so it says, give you another minute or two. Alright, so it says, "He that says he abides in him ought himself also so to walk even as he walked." So, once you're grafted in, now you're expected to walk the same way the Mashiach walked, or the Messiah walked. So question one is, how did he walk? Was he lawless, or did he keep the laws and commandments of the Father? And if he did keep them, and he tells us we should walk even as how he walked, then we have a problem if there's some other doctrine out there that tells us to do something different. Okay? So, we're going to move on to the next stage of it, but I want you to, I'll read a little bit of the notes. Everyone who accepts Yashar'al the Messiah is betrothed to him. But that marriage is not yet completed. The completion of the marriage is when he rules and reigns with his bride during the Messianic era. Okay? So it's not fully complete yet. Alright, let's look at Revelation chapter 5, verse 10. Revelation 5:10. Okay, so it says, "And having made us unto our Elohim kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth." So that's a future event. Right? Okay, so then if that's the case, drop down to, go to Revelation chapter 19, verse 7. Because the question would be is, well, the king and priests, who are they? These would have to be the Messiah's bride. Okay, that's who they are. 19 verse 7. So it said, "Let us be glad and rejoice." Keep the word glad and rejoice, because you're going to hear that again. "And give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife has made herself ready." Now I need you to highlight "made herself ready," because we need to see how to make ourselves ready. Okay, so we're going to go over that in just a minute, but not yet. Now, this is the bride, right? So if you go 2 chapters down to chapter 21, to verse 10, just go 2 chapters down. (21:10), it says, "And he carried me away in the spirit to get to a great and high mountain." I hope you all know what that mountain is. "And showed me the great city, the set apart Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from Elohim, having the esteem of Elohim, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal." Listen to 12. "And had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the 12 gates 12 messengers, and names written thereon were the names of what? The 12 tribes of Israel." Again, this is still going back to Israel, and we've already talked last week, it was of a natural seed and not of a spiritual Israel. Okay? Because then you got to understand where that spiritual Israel came from. All right? It says, 12 tribes, and then the children of tribes of the children of Israel. Now, who is the bride that he's coming for? We just said the unification of the 12 tribes of Israel. And I want you to, and it said, we said joy. I told you to remember the joy and the gladness, right? So, think about Jeremiah. Go back to Jeremiah chapter 31. This time we're going to go up a little bit. We're going to see something. Jeremiah 31 verse 10.
Said 10 or 2?
10. Okay. Jeremiah 31:10. It says, Hear the word of Yahuwah, O you nations, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, He that scattered Israel, or the ones that were scattered abroad, right, will gather him and keep him as a shepherd does his flock. For Yahuwah has redeemed Yaakov. We're going to revisit that in a little bit. And ransomed him from the hands of him that was stronger than he. Verse 12. Now listen to verse 12, and you can go to real quick 14:1, Revelations 14:1 for me, and then you're going to go to Revelation 7:4. I'm going to read 31:12 here real quick. So it says, verse 12 says, Therefore they shall come and sing in the heights of Zion. Where are they going?
Zion.
Okay, and this is Israel, right, that's going there. We're going to see it again later on something in just a minute, because they're going to be the bride. So now, they're going to Zion. What does Revelation 14:1 say?
It says, And I looked and saw a lamb standing on Mount Zion.
Who's the lamb? That's the Mashiach, the Messiah. And where is he going to be? On Mount Zion. Same thing Jeremiah 31 here saying. So, everyone's going to Mount Zion, whether they like it or not. Right? Okay, and then, so keep finish it out.
And I looked and saw a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written upon their foreheads.
Okay, think about that. The lamb is going to be at Mount Zion. We just read here, right? That's where everyone's going to be. In Jeremiah, we just read that. Revelation says they're going to be the lamb's going to be at Zion, and it's going to be 144,000. Right? Then Revelation 7:4 says what?
And I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000, sealed out of all the tribes of the children of Israel.
Okay. Is there can it get any clearer that the ones that are going to be at Mount Zion are going to be Israel? Jeremiah says it, the natural seed. All we did was go and revert and read over it in Revelation. It's still talking about the same seed. Okay? Alright, so let me keep going. This y'all hope y'all stayed in Jeremiah 31:12. So it says, And shall flow together to the goodness of Yahuwah for wheat, and for wine, and for oil, and the young of the flocks, and the herd, and their soul shall be as watered garden, and they shall not sorrow any more at all. This is the 13. 13 says, Then shall the virgin rejoice in the dance, both young men and old together. For I will turn their mourning into joy, and I will comfort them and make them joyous from their sorrows. Now think about that. This virgin, young men and old together, will be doing this rejoicing, right? If you can read Revelations 14:4.
14:4 says, They are those who are not defiled with women, for they are maidens or virgins.
Okay.
They are those following the Lamb wherever he leads them. They were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to Elohim and to the Lamb.
They were what? Remember I told you, remember what? First fruits. Right? Because Israel is called first fruits, we read earlier. And now, over here, it says what? Revelation says those are the same first fruits that he's talking about. So again, this is still Israel. Okay?
Let me ask you just for some clarification. What is the virgin refer to? Because we know it's not like, I'm assuming it's not like physical virgin.
Right, but remember from the time that you've been washed, that's the whole point of the immersion. Okay, you're supposed to make yourself ready or clean, so now you're considered these young daughters or maidens are commonly called virgins.
Okay, so the virgin refer to immersion. mentioned.
Right. This is all spiritual, realistically. Yeah. All right. Now, so I'll read. So the part we read, Revelation 14:4, where it talks about the virgins, and then of course in Jeremiah 2:3, which we read earlier, Jeremiah says Israel is set apart unto Yahuwah, the first fruits. So everyone can see that. Everyone's good with that. Now let me read Jeremiah 33:11. 33:11. Because remember, I told you to remember in Revelations it said there'll be joy and gladness. Right? So Jeremiah 33:11 says the voice of joy and the voice of gladness. The voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride. And the voice of them that shall say, Praise Yahuwah of hosts, for Yahuwah is good, for his mercy endures forever. And of them that shall bring the sacrifice of praise into the house of Yahuwah, for I will cause to return the captivity of the land at the first, saith Yahuwah. So this bride is still Israel. This whole book is only speaking of Israel. I hope everyone starts to pick this up.
Right.
One people, right. Okay? So the bride that Yashar'al is coming for is not, at this time, all believers in him. The bride he is coming for in coming for her and his returning, the captivity of the land, the reuniting of the 12 tribes of Israel. That's what this is about. And the reason why I say he's not coming for all, because number one, we just read, is going to be 12,000 per tribe.
Right.
So obviously there's a lot more per tribe, but he's only specifically getting 12,000. Now, let's see a little bit more about that. So not every believer in Mashiach is going to be ready for this marriage. Okay? Matthew chapter 25. I need you to read Matthew chapter 25. I need you to read 1 through 12. 25. Matthew 25, 1 through 12. Everyone, this is a parable.
It says, Then the reign of the heavens shall be compared to 10 maidens who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom.
Okay, 10 maidens or 10
Virgins.
Okay.
And 5 of them were wise, and 5 foolish. Those who were foolish, having taken their lamps, took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their containers with their lamps. Now while the bridegroom took time, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight a cry was heard, See, the bridegroom is coming, go out to meet him. Then all those virgins rose up and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, Give us of your oil, because our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, No, indeed there would not be enough for us and you. Instead, go to those who sell and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. And later the other virgins also came, saying, Master, Master, open up for us. But he answered, saying, Truly, I say to you,
Listen.
I do not know you.
Okay. He says, I do not know you, right? Everyone understands this parable. So read real quick Matthew 7, 21 through 23, because this is going to be very important before we talk about the 5.
7:21. 7:21 says, Not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, shall enter into the reign of the heavens, but he who is doing the desire of my Father in the heavens. Many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and done many mighty works in your name? And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness.
Okay, here's the key. Over there in the parable, it tells you, he says, I never knew you, right? To the 5 foolish, I never knew you. Over here, it says, I never knew you because of what reason? You were lawless, is why I don't know you. So he gave a parable of something that's supposed to happen in the future. So here's the hint that he's trying to tell you in the parable. The 5 wise represent the 5 books of Moses, as they call it, or the law, or the Torah. Those 5 are wise. 5 foolish don't want to say, we don't have to do the law. It's done away with. Both know they're coming. He's coming. But one decided to keep the law, the other did not. Can everyone see that so far?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so now, I don't want you to say these are my words. All right? So, I'm going to read Psalms chapter 19, verse 7. All right, Psalm 19:7. This is about remember, this is the 5 wise, right, that would keep the law. So listen to what it says in 19:7, Psalms 19:7. It says, the law of Yahuwah is perfect, converting the soul. The witness of Yahuwah is sure, making what? Wise the simple. Okay? The law made that person wise. So you got the 5 wise and the 5 foolish. Right? Verse 8 says, the statutes of Yahuwah are right, rejoicing what? The heart. You remember the heart transplant. The commandments of Yahuwah is pure, enlightening the eyes. Alright? Everyone sees that. I'm going to take one more place, which is Proverbs 28:7. Okay, 28:7. Where it says, whoso keeps the law is a wise son. Okay? But he that is a companion or a friend of the worthless one or the glutton shames his father. Okay? So, these 5 wise, or the 5 books of Moses they call, or keeping the Torah, makes them wise, as it says. So it's not something I'm saying, I'm just reading what it says in the scriptures. That's what made those 5 wise had their lamps trimmed and ready for his return. We're going to see how does that make you ready for your return. We're going to see that in just a minute. So hold your seats there. All right, now, 5 foolish. Listen to 1 Samuel 13:13. Okay, 1 Samuel 13:13. Listen to what it says. It says, and Samuel said to Shaul or Saul, you have done foolishly. You have not kept the commandments of Yahuwah your Elohim, which he commanded you. For now would Yahuwah have established your kingdom upon Yashar'al forever. So, foolishness was not keeping it. So you see the 5 wise kept it, was ready for the bridegroom. 5 foolish did not. Everyone sees that, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, the one following Torah, this is the coming of the bridegroom, even though they were expecting him. Okay? All right. Next thing I have on here, I'll just read my notes here. You said there was a cry made, right? Behold, the bridegroom comes. Remember that? All right. The foolish virgins prepared themselves for the coming the bridegroom. They identified with the bridegroom, but the foolish virgins did not make it, even though they were looking for their bridegroom. The parable says that there was a cry at midnight. Okay, so what is a cry an allusion to? It is a loud voice, it is a shout, as in a shofar, and dealing with like Rom Teruah. So we'll talk about how you're going to make yourself ready, because you're going to need something to understand this cry. All right? The gathering of exiles of Israel is associated with a loud shout, or teruah. The shofar is going to be sounded together. The exiles of Israel, so my question was, when did the gathering take place? When the Creator took them out the first time. You remember that, when that took place? That was back in what? Exodus or Shemot, and they were in Egypt, right? Okay, so think about that. And when you read about that, something happened at midnight there. Right? Mm-hmm. So something happened at midnight there. There's a live cry going on, right? Everyone remembers that?
Yeah.
The first bit. Okay, good. So that if Matthew 25 talking about there's going to be another cry at midnight, you better need to figure out, we might need to know something so that we can prepare ourselves for this. Okay? All right, so midnight is the darkest part of the night, the middle of the night, which means the night has already started. What is the nighttime end is called the tribulation. Okay? This is not the beginning of the tribulation. This is the darkest part, which is going to be considered the great tribulation. So again, when we get into end time prophecy, you're going to see that this is very, very important. All right? So, that is when the Mashiach is going to gather 12 tribes of Israel at that time. Remember Yaakov's trouble all the way to the great tribulation. This is what this is all about. All right, Revelations 12:1. Revelations 12:1. We're still doing good? speed it up. All right, 12:1 it says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars." Now, excuse me, the woman obviously is, okay, and the 12 stars representing the 12 tribes of Israel. If you just jump down to verse 6, it says, "The woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared of Elohim, that they should feed her there 1,260 days." Okay, so we did that prophecy already. 42 months, 3.5 years. Everyone's familiar with that. Okay, and this is given prophecy back in where? Daniel. Okay, so again, this is still talking about Israel. Revelations is talking about Israel. I hope everyone's starting to pick this up. Now, let's go to Colossians real quick, chapter 2, verse 16 and verse 17. I need to pick this up. All right.
Colossians what?
Chapter 2, verse 16 and verse 17. All right. So it says, "Let no..." I'm doing parallels with this. Okay. So just follow me here. It says, "Let no man therefore judge you." Pause. That means discern correct ways. Okay. "In meat or in drink," pause. That's offerings and observances. In respect to set apart days, feast days and appointed times. It says, "Of your new moon, times and cycles, or on the Shabbat," the rest day, obedience of understanding the rest day of the Shabbat, "which are a shadow of things to come." The teaching what to look for. Shadow. What you think a shadow is. Okay? Think about what a shadow is for. It's something that's being portrayed, everyone's familiar with shadow, obviously, right? But it's a shadow of something to come. Right? Because this is what this says. It says, "But the body of the Mashiach, others who are also walking in obedience." All right? So those are your parallels. So, question would be is, what is still coming when Shaul is writing this letter to the believers? This is talking about the second coming of the Mashiach. You got to have these to understand that. Right? So, this says, this passage instructs the believers that the Shabbat, new moons, and the feast days are pictures of something to look forward to. Okay? So the word shadow, I give you the Greek there, is skaya, and it means the darkness, or the darkest part. So you put that together while we keep going here. So, the tools needed to understand the second coming, your Torah, talk about the 5 foolish and 5 wise, the Shabbats, the new moons, and the annual feast days. If you can get those, you are prepared, okay, for His coming. That's what you need. And just in case you don't think so, you go to Isaiah chapter 66. It talks about when you get a new heaven and a new earth, you still keeping Shabbats, new moons. That's what this is talking about. So you got to get this now and prepare yourself now for when it does come. All right, so I got to speed this up here. Sorry about that. How are we saved? Ephesians 2:8. So listen, you all write it down. I'll read. Okay, because I got to get through 7 more pages here. All right. So Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. Okay, it's going to be verse 8 and verse 9. It says, "For by favor, commonly called grace, are you saved through faith, and not of yourself. It is the gift of Elohim." So it says, "Not of works, lest any man should boast." So what does that say? So we are saved by the favor through faith, right? We should walk in the good works. Why? Because it saves us?
No.
Okay, so the good works is not saving you, right?
No.
It's the favor that the Father has given you, right? But then listen to verse 10. Verse 10. It says, "For we are His workmanship, created in Messiah," or in Mashiach, "Yashar'al unto" what? Good works, which Elohim had before ordained that we should walk in them. So, what you need first is faith, and your faith is supposed to bring forth good works. Let me give you an example of good works. Okay? We'll go to John, or if you want to, John chapter 10, verse 31 through verse 38. You need to write this down. John 10, 31 through 38. Okay, so let's look at these good works. Now, keep in mind, this is the Mashiach, because He is what? We're supposed to walk even as how He walked, right? Take up our statement and follow Him, right? Okay, good. 10:31 says this, "Then Yahudim took up stones again to stone Him. And Yahshua answered and said, many what? Good works have I showed you from my Father. For which of those works do you stone me? And Yahweh answered him, saying, for a good work we stone you not, but for blasphemy, and because you, being a man, make yourself Elohim. And Yahweh answered and says, it is not written in your law, I said you are mighty ones, or Elohim. He says, if he called them Elohim, or mighty ones, unto whom the word of Elohim came, and the scriptures cannot be broken, what was called scripture? At this time, the scripture was the Tanakh, commonly what they call the Old Testament. It cannot be broken. It says, say you of him whom the Father has sanctified and sent into the world, you're blasphemy, because I said I am the Son of Elohim? If I do not the works of my Father, believe me not. Okay? But if I do, though you believe not me, believe the works, that you may know and believe that the Father is in me and I in him. So think about what he just said here. The good works that he did was keeping the instructions. He said, go figure out and see. You can bounce it back off the scriptures, commonly called the Old Testament, and see that I'm doing these good works. So what he's saying in essence here is this here. When we get the Spirit, because that's what we need, through faith, then we can do the law, and that's considered good works. That's the work that he's talking about. But it's not saving you. It's causing you to walk in his commandments and his law. All right. So obviously the Mashiach was doing what? Following the Torah. He was following the law there.
That's right.
All right. So that's good works. That's a good example. Okay. So follow Torah after we are saved by favor through faith. Romans 3:31. Romans 3:31. Everyone's familiar with this here. Do we make void the law through faith?
No.
Okay? Then it says, Elohim forbid, yea, we establish the law or the Torah, right? So let me first go to the word void, because he said, do we make void? So the law. So let me change the word void out with its Greek other definitions. So do we do away with the law? Do we abolish the law? Do we destroy the law? And he says, or put away the law. He says, no, we establish it. The word for establish means to abide, to continue, to make covenant, to uphold. So Paul is saying, if you, just the Greek, is saying, he's saying, I ain't telling you to do away with it. He said, I'm saying we establish. In other words, we continue to do it, but we continue it with something helping us. We're going to see what that is in just a minute. Okay? So, how do we establish the Torah? Paul tells us in Romans 7:22. Romans 7:22. It says, for I delight in the law of Elohim after my inward man. Did you remember we talked about something's going to be placed in your inward part? Right? What was supposed to be placed there? A new heart with what? With the Ruach, with the Spirit. Good. It says, but I see another law in my member, warring against the law of my mind. He says, and bringing me into captivity to the law of what? Sin. Which is where? So the law of sin is inside his member, inside the same being. Right? So you see the struggle that's about to take place. So he says, oh wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? I thank Elohim through Yashar'al Mashiach, or the Messiah, our sovereign. So then with the mind I myself serve the law of Elohim. Okay? That's clear. He says, but with the flesh, the law of sin. Okay? So my note says, where's the fight? It's in the member. So the Father sends a gift, the Spirit, to help us so that we can truly serve the law of Elohim with love and good works. That's how that works. Okay? Now, to delight in the Torah of Elohim after our inward parts. What is the inward man? So, look at 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 16. 2 Corinthians 4:16. And it says, for which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed anew day by day. Okay, remember, a new heart and a new spirit. Because we're going to go to Romans chapter 6 in just a minute. We're no longer under the law but under grace. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Okay? Proverbs, or Mishlei 20:27. Okay, Proverbs of Mishnah 20:27. It says, the spirit of man is the candle of Yahuwah, searching all the inward parts of the belly. Okay, so what will happen when the Father puts His Spirit in mankind? What will happen? We will wind up, and this is, we just read Ezekiel 36, verse 27. We read in Jeremiah 31:31, and Hebrews 8:10. All of them say we will keep His laws. Okay, the Spirit is going to help us keep the law and do it unto good works. Okay? Alright, so the inward man is one that is filled with the set-apart Spirit. So you follow the written Torah with the guidance and inspiration of the set-apart Spirit, who will cause you to walk in His statutes and His judgments and keep them. That is how this is supposed to take place here. Alright, who did Mashiach or Messiah come for? Most Christians think that belongs to the Christian Gentile church that is separate and distinct from the Old Testament and separate and distinct from the nation of Israel. Alright, Matthew 15:24. Matthew 15:24, you can write it down. I'm trying to speed here. Alright, this is, but He answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Yashar'al. Do you see why this house of Israel is very, very important again? Right? So, my question, and I will answer in just a minute, was, why was He sent to the house of Israel? Who sent Him? And what was His reason for sending Him? Okay? Now, Psalms 119, 172, Psalms 119, 172, and 173. Okay? Because this is talking about He came to the lost sheep. Alright? So it says, my tongue shall speak of your words, for all your commandments are righteousness. It says, let your hand help me, for I have chosen your precepts. The word precepts there is commandments. Okay? Precepts, statutes. Anyway, let's keep going. He says, I have longed for your salvation, O Yahuwah, and your law is my delight. Let my soul live, and it shall praise you, and let your judgments help me. I have gone astray like a lost sheep. Seek your servant, for I do not forget your commandments. What causes him to get lost?
Forgetting the commandments.
Forget His commandments. Do you see how this is what He's coming to the house of Israel? What they did was not keep His laws and commandments. Alright? Jeremiah 50 verse 4. Jeremiah 50 verse 4 through verse 6. Okay? It says, in those days and in that time, saith Yahuwah, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Yehudah, together, going and weeping, they shall go and seek Yahuwah their Elohim. Now listen to what it says in verse 5. They shall ask the way to Zion, with their faces thitherward, saying, come and let us join ourselves to Yahuwah in a perpetual covenant, or everlasting covenant, shall not be forgotten. And then it says, my people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountain. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. You see what's happening here? The lost sheep are those that did not keep His laws and commandments. So the Mashiach, being the Word Himself, is being a good shepherd, which we're about to read. And now He's trying to bring the lost sheep back, and He's not violating any laws or commandments. Everyone's good with this. All right. So Yahshua was sent to the house of Israel because they are the lost sheep. Israel split into two separate houses. The northern house was the house of Israel, and the southern house of Yehudah were acting during this time. The Mashiach was living on the earth. Okay, but He had another fold that was considered lost because of, and I got the 3 bullets here, which is they rejected the law or His instructions, commandments. They were divorced. This is why the house of Israel, they were divorced, and they were called lost sheep. All right? Keep in mind that the promise was in Ezekiel 37 to make the 2 sticks one. That's the promise. Right? So that must mean something is not finished. Right? All right. So listen to what it says in John 4:34, and then you guys go to 5:36. Okay? John 4:34 says, Yahshua says unto them, my meat is to do the will of Him that sent me to what? Finish His work. So He has to finish what was not complete or finished in the Scriptures. Okay? So because His word cannot come back to Him void. 5:36 says, but I have a greater witness, that of Yehukanan, for the works which the Father has given me to finish, The same works that I do bear witness of me that the Father has sent me. So Father sent him to finish his work, and his work was to regather Israel to, number one, the house of Israel that was divorced. They have to be remarried or be grafted in, right? And there has to be a death that took place. This is the whole point of the Mashiach, death and resurrection. We'll hopefully get to that soon. All right. All right, so what has to be finished, what was not finished, are the prophecies that were not finished in the Tanakh, commonly called the Old Testament, and he had to make the two folds or the two houses one. John 10, verse 11 through 16. John 10, 11 through 16. Okay? Man.
Work it, brother. Work it.
All right, so it says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep.
Oh, yeah.
But he that is the hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf catches them and scatters the sheep. The hireling flees because he is a hireling and cares not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and them know me. As the Father knows me, even so I, the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold, one shepherd. Now the fold that's not there was the house of Yashar'al. That's why he said, I've only sent to them because they're not of that fold, the house of Yehuda, which was there at his time. Okay? So I got to speed this up here. I wasn't going to go what parables mean, so we'll keep going. We'll pass that. Ezekiel 34:11 is a picture of the Good Shepherd. Okay, Ezekiel 34:11 through 16 is a picture of the Good Shepherd. Okay. So you read that one. I'm going to keep going.
Read, brother.
All right. So when Mashiach makes two houses one, they will be restored as they were before the marriage of Mount Sinai. So before, when they're separate, they're called what? The house of
Israel.
and house of
Yehuda.
Okay, so before that, when they were at Mount Sinai, let's see what the name was called. Okay, this is Exodus 19:3. All right, it says, and Moshe or Moses went up unto Elohim, and Yahweh called unto them out of the mountain, saying, thus shall you say to the house of Jacob. So he has to make those two houses back to one house called the house of Jacob. All right, great. So if that is the case, why is that important? Because Luke chapter 1, verse 31 through 33 says this. And behold, ye shall conceive and were in your womb, and were forth, and ye shall call the name Yashar'al, and he shall be great, and shall be called the Son of the Most High, and Yahuwah Elohim shall give unto him the throne of his father David. Listen to 33. And he shall reign over the house of Jacob. You see that? He's going to reign over the house of Jacob, just like it was when he married them at Mount Sinai. The marriage is going to take place again after he makes the two houses one. So that's why Israel has to be brought together first when his coming comes. All right. So let me keep rolling here. All right. I'm just going to paraphrase some of this for you. Where the separate commandments to follow, in other words, non-physical Israel, will they have separate commandments from Israel? So here's the part where the others are going to start to come with Israel. Will they have separate commandments? No. Okay, so to prove that, that's Numbers 15:15 and Numbers 15:15 and verse 16, where it says, one ordinance shall be for both, for the congregation and also for the stranger and the sojourner with you, an ordinance forever in your generations, as you are, so shall the stranger be before Yahuwah. One law and one manner shall be for you and for the strangers that sojourns with you. Okay? They're all going to have to do the same thing. There's no separation. There's no, Israel's going to have to keep the laws and commandments, but the church does not. They're doing something totally different. No, there's only one fold. How we know that? Ephesians 4:4 says there is one body, one spirit, even as you are called in one hope of your calling, one sovereign, one faith, one immersion, one Elohim and Father of all, and who is above all and through all and in you all. There's only one. So there's no separate thing going here. All right? So everyone's good with that. All right. Wow. All right, so you all can read Isaiah 58:13-14 on your own. This talks about the Shabbat.
Which Ephesians was that?
Ephesians 4:4.
Okay.
Okay, that was Ephesians 4:4. 4:4 through 4:6. Okay? All right.
You said Isaiah what?
58, 13, and 14. This talks about keeping the Shabbat. Okay? That's very, very important because it talks about the heritage of Jacob, or the heritage of Yaakov is right there.
Repeat that again. I'm sorry.
Isaiah 58, 13, and 14.
Thank you, bro.
All right, no problem.
You're going to have to put some notes up.
Okay, huh?
You have to put them notes on the internet.
Yeah. All right, so I promised we had to get to Romans 6, so let's get to Romans 6. That's what I'm trying to get to. Oh, this is terrible. All right, so let's read Romans 6. Romans 6:1 is about the longest thing I'm going to read here. All right, so it says, "What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that faith or grace, as they may abound? Elohim forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Know you not that so many of us were immersed into Yashar'al Mashiach, were immersed into his death?" Keep that in mind, because this is the whole plot of this whole chapter. "Therefore we are buried with him by immersion into death, that like as Mashiach was raised up from the dead," keep that in mind, "by the esteem of the Father, even so we also shall walk in newness of life. If we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we be also in the likeness of his resurrection. Knowing this, that the old man is crucified with him, and the body of the sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin. For he that is dead is free from sin." Do you hear anything between law and grace just yet? All right. It says, now if we be dead with Mashiach or Messiah, we believe that we shall also live with him. Knowing that the Mashiach, being raised from the dead, dies no more. Death has no more dominion over him. For in that he died unto sin once, but in that he lives unto Elohim. Likewise, reckon you also yourself to be dead indeed unto what? The law? No. To sin. You're dead to sin, but alive unto Elohim through Yashar'al Mashiach, our sovereign. Let no sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that you shall obey it in the lust thereof. That's very, very key there. Neither yield your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin. Sin is transgression of the law. Okay? So it says, yield yourself unto Elohim, and those that are alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto Elohim. For sin shall not have dominion over you. Listen to what this part says. For you are not under the law, but under favor, under grace. That's what they use, that one verse, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under favor and grace? Elohim forbid. So it says, know you not that to whom you yield yourself servants to obey, his servants you are to whom you obey, whether it's sin unto death or obedience unto righteousness. Elohim be thanked that you were the servants of sin, but you have obeyed from the heart that formed the doctrine which you have delivered. Now, I'm not going to finish the rest of it because I'm going to tell you all that this is saying. All right. So Yashar'al part is not debating whether you follow the law or grace, and you make your choice. What Yashar'al is doing in Romans chapter 6 is comparing death of the Messiah on the tree or on the stake to death of the old man. Okay? And comparing the resurrection of the Messiah to the new man that we have received. And that the Mashiach died once, we died once with him, meaning our old man died one time and he is dead. We are to consider him dead, but Mashiach, when he got raised, was raised eternal life, so our new man should be eternal in us. Okay? We are not under the law wherein the old man has dominion over us. We are under the law wherein the inward man is renewed day by day, and is able through the help of the Spirit to have victory over the old man than the man of flesh. That's what all of this is about. That's all this is about. So they took all of this chapter 6, saw this one thing and thought, see, we're not under the law, we're under grace. But it has everything to do with him doing a comparison between the two. That's what this is about. Hebrews 8:13, and I think I'll close with that. I'll have to. All right. Hebrews 8:13. Listen to what it says. It says, and this is in the King James, it says, in that he says, a new covenant he has made the first old. Now that which decays and waxes old, ready to vanish. See, this Old Testament, Old Covenant, right? The problem with that is the word covenant is added. It was never in the original writings. All right? So, that being the case, so what it's saying is, alright, so I'll do it anyway. So the covenant is italicized if you guys read that. It says, it doesn't say a new covenant, it's making the first covenant obsolete. That's not what it's saying at all. Okay, it's saying so that which is a new following the Torah by the Simpar Spirit is causing the stony heart and the power that of the flesh has to dominate and control you. That is that which is old and is waxing or fading away. So in other words, it's talking about the new you. Not a new covenant, the new you. And the old you is fading away. Okay? So in other words, the old you is the one that was keeping, because keep in mind, Hebrews chapter 8 was talking about the house of Israel and the house of Yehuda. Remember that? We just read that earlier. And then it starts talking about how he's going to make this covenant. But it's going to be a different one because now he's going to put a spirit or a ruach, which we heard earlier, inside of them. So that way the old one is going to go away and they're going to be in this newness. I hope everyone understands this part. Mm-hmm. All right. I'm going to have to skip Galatians. You guys can get that. And Acts chapter 15, I'll paraphrase all of that. Acts 15, people think about the circumcision and how that's supposed to be, they were trying, saying that we no longer need to be circumcised and all that other stuff, right? But remember 15 verse 1 tells you that they were trying to get saved from circumcision. That was the whole problem, right? Then when you jump down to 15:20, it says, we write you unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols and from fornication and from things that are strangled and blood. These things, what the house of Israel was doing, they became non-believers and divorced. They were the ones that were doing all of these things. And it's saying, abstain from that stuff. Okay? And then verse 21 says what? For Moshe Moses of old times have in every city to them preach him being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day. In other words, you're going to just have them stop all this idolatry stuff, and they're going to go to the Shabbat service and learn more. That's what's happening there in Acts chapter 15. Okay. I can breathe. I surely wish I could have went a little bit more, but that's realistically what I want to go over as far as, number one, the whole Hebraic understanding and the Mashiach's coming has everything to do with Israel. Everything. And it's talking about the physical Israel is what he's coming for. Okay? And so we went back and forth between the two sides of the book, as they call it, because to show you that they don't talk against each other. There's just some issues that Israel did, the Father sent the Messiah to finish or to renew something and make it better than what it was. Okay? That's what happened. Okay? So therefore, when I talk to someone that's, let's say, from the church or something like that, they first got to know the purpose of the Messiah. If their understanding is he came to get the church or the Gentile church, they've already lost the battle. Okay, you got to now go back and show them, no, let me share with you why he had to come on the scene. Number one, this is not his first marriage, the first church of the New Testament. He was actually married at Mount Sinai. Let me prove it to you. And then once you see the marriage that he did, he hates what? Divorce. But he gave one to Israel, right? According to Jeremiah 33:8. So because he gave Israel divorce, he had to fix that because he hates it. I hope everyone gets that or has that. All right. I'm just trying to make sure I get all of it on camera. All right. Any questions? No? Okay, great. All right. Well, that'll work. So we'll go ahead and shut down and close, and I'll take some questions on that.